discussion. This is a quote from, 2014, 2013. It says, this is from a person who attended the meeting, from the public. We're paying rent for IBTS indirectly and law is we paying for facilities used by the city services contractor, directly or indirectly. I see no reason to place city services office off-site at added expense and inconvenience of citizens simply for the convenience of the mayor. See unified, that's a word that, they talked about in some of the handouts. It's the mayor's job to be bothered by the citizens, and he or she can just suck it up. But that's, assuming that maybe it's a one day or one day.
They got you recorded on that, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this, Wayne, on there looking at this, and do we have to, and I'm looking at public settlement, $5 million, we talking about a lot of money here, we're looking right at the same cost for doing IBTS, doing, the city services bid and all that. Can we just look right now at doing just City Hall?
Oh, yeah, we can.
And let IBTS do it, because I'm gonna tell you what, it's gonna be hard to convince the public to spend the same amount of money. They don't understand about, and don't care about city services and their lay down yard and all that, and us spending city money for that. Even though it is our money, in a roundabout way.
Well, that's why
But
I said we
I
have
would
to
rather look at City Hall right now than all of this other.
we've got to educate the public on what we're into and what's best for them.
That's gonna be a hard sell right now after what's going down.
Yeah.
A hard sell.
I think you work at it, but yeah, you can do one.
I would rather do the, and of course, I'm like, Pete, if it's free, it's for me,
Well, and I think this kind of what we're all talking about, and that's what I like hearing are the different ideas, and I think it goes down to we've got to have something to go and talk to the public about. Say, okay, look, we've met, we've got this committee, here are some ideas, but we want to hear your ideas as well, because it's exactly what we just talked about. You have to get the public to buy into this. And the public might come out, I can pretty much tell you, they're gonna come out and say, we're not spending $5 million. Okay,
Right.
they already sent that message out.
Yeah.
So that's what
That's
we've
my
got,
point.
right, we've gotta see and talk with the public and see, what are you willing to buy? And that's why I think maybe you talk about the different phases. You have a city hall building, and you have an administration a city services building, and you have a laydown yard, and you tell them, look, okay, what do y'all think we need to do? Look, can we afford the city hall at this time? Okay, and then do we get space for later on the same property to, build an annex building or a wing or whatever for city services and later on? You've gotta see what the people are willing to accept. And that's why I don't want us getting way too deep into this right now until we get some feedback back.
It
and some
won't
direction.
fly until we get the buy-in and if we get the citizens to sound off, they'll take ownership of the whole project and be proud of it.
But that's-
And we'll call it their city hall, our city hall. It'll be our city center, or whatever we're gonna call it.
And that's what we did last time, when we originally had it.
And
We got the
everybody was
public,
happy.
because we got the public's input on it. And I think what happened this last time, we all saw very well, it was being crammed down the public's throat.
Right.
By saying, here's what, the administration came in and says, here's this building we're doing, and here's the property we're doing it on, and here's the plan, and we hope y'all like it, vote for it. And
Yeah.
there was a big backlash, and so that's what I wanna make sure that we avoid this time, and that we go to the public. But we have to have something, and that's what I was kinda getting this meeting here to set up today was, we have to have something to go to the public and tell them, hey, here's what we're talking about. Okay, I didn't want us walking into a meeting cold and we're all on 10 different pages, and so let's, try to get what we want to talk to the public about.
And
Or get
probably-
public feedback from.
If we could, I'd like to go ahead and let's get this out of the way so that you can have an idea. I guess you could be the one to draft the letter, because I can't draft it. Plus I'm leaving town. But, which of these things do you want to put into a letter so you know what you're gonna be, drafting a letter around in order to get the input that you need from the property owners?
That's your list of properties, is that what that is?
It's just a list of, it's in there.
That's the
It's in there.
RFI. What would you wanna
Yeah.
put the
Okay.
RFI?
What would you put in the,
Josh said,
I think in conjunction with that, we probably probably need to have some just generic terms of what square footages, what actual size of laydown yards, so we can see on each piece of property to identify what actually works as far as infrastructure. If we have a 4,000 square foot building, we can draw that box on the piece of property. If we have a 5,000 square foot IBTS building or city services building, we can actually have those boxes to be able to just diagram on any one of these pieces of property to see if they're gonna be viable, and have that part of the process.
Yeah.
As we look at each and investigate each one of these properties.
All right, but that's what's down the road. Right now is to get this information out, to see if any of these people are interested, we know some of them are, and see if it's anybody else. That's step one. It doesn't matter what size it is that if they're interested, when we take what they give us, then we start trying to do what you do and start matching it. That's down the road. That's why we didn't even intend to get into this kind of stuff today.
That's fine.
You know, the layout and all, until we can start finding out what properties might be available. Then we can start saying, okay, this will work here, this will work over there, maybe we can do this or do that.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think 10 steps down the road.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to at least have a baseline of what you guys are thinking, so I can know when I start to see these properties, I can say yes, no, maybe, you know, in a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, like, oh, we're gonna put them on the same site. Well, if we're not gonna put them, if we're dead set, we're gonna put them both on the same site, well, that erases a couple of these sites real quick.
Right.
But if we're absolutely don't want them on the same site, well, that keeps this list and then some problem.
Yeah,
You know? So,
That's why we wanna try and see what we can get back in and what options we do have. Until we do this, we have no idea what we have. I mean, we got some property we already know we can get on,
Right.
but maybe there's something else out there that we could have that we don't know about. So, I mean, just start saying yay, nay, or whatever, just down the list. If you think we should, we shouldn't, or put it in there so you can have some guidelines.
Well, I mean, of course, the property size is in there, the dimensions, location, those are kind of, I think, automatically included. If they know their elevation of the property, they can provide that. Of course, access to highway, we'll know that by looking at the property. Did it flood? I mean, that's a simple yes or no question. You know, wetlands, that is a factor, because if you have to go into mitigating wetlands on something, yeah, that could.
That's huge. We don't wanna do that.
And you're right, and time, yeah, cost and time, you know, so I think that's important. The sewer, we have sewer maps, you know, we can look and see if there's public sewer lines there. That's very easy for us to do. I think definitely design and deed restrictions, I think, are important. You know, that was a major issue with the school board property, you know, was
Exactly.
you know, what's deed, and, you don't know with anybody else that offers another piece of property if there's deed restrictions on it, title as well. I mean, I think, you know, I think basically we could figure out if they didn't have it already. We know the sewer system. You know, of course, we know if it flooded. But I think all the other questions are, I mean, all the other items on here, I think are fair game.
What you need.
Yeah.
You don't have anything you need to add to it, that's the other question. Anybody have anything you think we need to add to those?
Well, if you started with what we did last time, just adding did it flood, you know, the 2016 event would be a major one to add, and you've already done it.
Anybody here?
Yeah. So that's the only one I can think of. We don't have any other new information that we need to include in that, that lead to more questions in that, except for the flood, that I can think of. I mean, the city center hadn't changed, the city limits haven't changed.
Okay, if that's okay, then the only last thing that we need to cover, because we're really past 1 o'clock. The other thing to cover, it could be next meeting. We do plan to try and get this out in front of the public as much as we can. So the next meeting will be scheduled for the 26th of March, which will be right before the council meeting at Christianwood. We'll set the meeting up for 4:30. And the thinking there is hopefully some of the people that come for the council meeting will come earlier to this meeting, And we'll probably do the same thing 2 weeks after that. So by that time, we'll have some feedback as to what we may have or may not have on properties. And then we can start really delving down into some of this stuff.
Okay, what's that council meeting, March what?
26, March 26th, and this meeting will be at 4:30.
Okay, and if we have the next public meeting, you wanted to have suggest another public meeting when?
2 weeks later, before the council meeting, and see how that works.
Okay, well, let me tell you what, why don't we talk with Spencer and see if we can have that one seem the load on the council agenda, make that one after the council meeting. Dave?
Nobody in the public is gonna think that a 4:30 meeting is a public meeting. Everyone's gonna say, I'm at work, y'all didn't include me.
All right, let's do it.
That's just my opinion.
We'll do one before and one after.
The one before, in my opinion, no one's gonna look at that and say, it was a good meeting.
Well, let's not do two of them, huh?
No, I mean, we're gonna need to have these meetings. 'Cause-
Yeah, but can we just do them afterwards?
Well, I'd like to try one before to see what response we get, then try one after to see what we get so I can compare.
When we have
See how it
5 o'clock
works.
meetings over the last 8 years, people complain about 5 o'clock meetings, saying, I can't make a 5 o'clock meeting, that wasn't fair. I'm just telling you, that's what you're gonna hear.
Well, you wanna try the after the first go round on the first one and then before on the second one? What do y'all think?
I agree with Dave. I mean, even when we have our budget meetings, it's like 15 minutes before at 6 o'clock, people will even say, I just walked in from work. And
Right.
at 6 for our school
Right.
board meetings.
Right.
So,
But
I
it's
would
the only.
I would rather the first one be a little later, just
Okay.
because it's the first meeting.
and we can ask them, what's the best time to have the next
Well,
one? Is this
look,
good for
look,
you?
From doing this for 10 years, you're never gonna find a time. Some people work night shifts, they'd rather meet today. Some people get off at 3 o'clock, it's no problem. Some people get off at 5. You can't ever find a time that works perfect for everybody. I mean, most city meetings, that any city has anywhere at 6 o'clock or,
It's
or
always
later.
best to ask. And
Right.
my next question is, who's gonna facilitate this, and what are the questions, and what information do we provide, and what information are we looking for?
Well, I think that's important. This first meeting, I think, is good to basically get what the public's feedback is gonna be on the whole thing. Okay, and that's what we wanna ask.
Before we go out for anything to request information on properties.
We could be preparing all of this, but I think
don't-
if this is just in
yeah, I don't
2
think
or
we'll
3 weeks.
send anything out until you get,
The public app.
don't get started without them.
Exactly, I agree.
Don't get
I
started
agree.
without them.
But you gotta have an idea of the properties before you can start going to the next phases.
But
All you can do is you can go in
I can
there.
assure you, out of all the properties that I see you've pointed out, we're gonna find the property if the public wants to do it. I got a couple of them picked out right now, but, especially the one that's free.
Free.
But, I don't know, I just, based on what I heard, and I wasn't involved in all that controversy last time, we didn't even bid the project with Josh and them. But I would not get started without public input.
But
I would not send out RFPs, well, you've already sent whatever you're sending out. I would not send out anything until you actually get some of the opinion from the public. That's my opinion.
No, I agree, and I think that's also kind of what we did the last time too, is we had kind of in a public meeting, we explained to the public what we're looking for in case anybody had questions about submitting an RFI.
And maybe
for
that's
their
what we're
property.
doing right now. Maybe this is a public meeting in itself, so maybe that's what we're doing right here. I don't know.
But I think if we could get it maybe after that council meeting or immediately, concluding that council meeting, and just I want to throw it out there, okay, here's what didn't work last time, we're regrouping. We're starting from scratch, basically, okay? Here are some ideas that we are floating around, we want to get the public's input. What are you willing to support?
And when you say last time, are you talking about the most recent effort or the one from 2013?
Well, I think a combination of the two.
Okay.
Because the one I think that we did in 2013, we went big scale. Let's
Yeah.
look at this big piece of property
Right.
with a park and, all this stuff, but we got public input, and that's what people
Sure.
said they wanted, so that's why we went that scale. Let's go back and look again. Okay, what are you willing to accept now? And you have to also remember, you know, we just forward. If you have two people show up there and say, well, yeah, I want an amphitheater, you know, and I say, okay, well, look, you know, I mean, you can't, just because two people want that, okay, but, you know, if you get this big crowd of people saying, look, we want some green space or something, well, yeah, okay. But I think the whole big idea that we had before is probably gonna get scaled down, but that's what we need to get input on, okay? Let's get that input, let's see what you're willing to accept. And then you also, what I don't want there to be confusion on is that we're building a $5 million megaplex. Again, I don't want people to think that's the same thing. And I don't want anybody to think that we're going out, starting construction tomorrow. I don't want anybody thinking that either. We're telling people we're starting over again, give us your input. Here is some work, you know, some preliminary ideas and work that we've done, but tell us what you want. Dave?
I guess it troubled me in the beginning when the whole concept of city center was kind of tossed out. I don't think that the public is opposed to city center. It never was something that we said, oh, we have to go out and buy 100 acres of property. We looked at buying 2 acres of property and making a city center around it of 4 acres. But it was all about the selection of the site, not about the investment in the surrounding property. Certainly it was the zoning of the surrounding property. And we're in the midst or the tail end of a master plan that says that's what we've been agreeing to do for 8-9 years now. That's a huge divergence from where we said we were going. Just throwing it out there.
That's my whole point, is getting the public input. Do you want us to stay on that path? Or did y'all send a message out, you know, last year saying, hey, things have changed, we don't want that anymore? You've got to get some feedback from the public as to what they're willing to take.
And I am very interested in knowing if I'm gonna come to this meeting, I wanna walk away knowing what you know, what do we have? What in the past was offered and what's on the table. So I wanna learn something from this meeting, and then I wanna give my input too. Like we take this off or we add this on or whatever. But I think this meeting, if I come to this meeting and you just say, give me some input, I'm gonna go home and say, they have no idea where they're starting. They have no idea. I mean, I don't even know how to answer a question on where to go if I don't know where we've been. You know, here's your city center, where we've been, what's on the table, and but I gotta learn something, and I gotta be able to give you an informed information. So I'm talking about the first meeting that we have. We need a very good facilitator who's gonna be able to give the information, who's gonna be able to take the information back, and we get what we want, and then plan the second meeting. Okay, so this meeting is real important to me in that we do it right, because that's gonna have buy-in. And if we don't do it right, we're gonna lose.
And what do you pay a month for rent here?
$1,200.
What does Kristen want to cost us?
Well, he wants to go up, so it's $150 a meeting.
Okay.
And when you have at least three meetings a month with council, planning and zoning.
And those are things we need to learn,
Well,
to show them.
I'm just, all of us go to church someplace, I'm sure, or somebody's been involved in making a business decision in the past, and you need to start with the numbers.
Yes, you do.
And what's this, of course it comes down to a point where you say, well, what type of image do we want to portray also? If we're not, as a city, if we're not willing to invest in ourselves, why would we expect others to come invest in us, okay? So you have to, I'm not saying, oh, well, he's got 150, that's $450 a month, and $1,250. Oh, so we got to make the numbers work to where it's $1,650 a month. That's impossible, okay? You're not going to build this building and be able to back out your investment at $1,650 a month, okay? But you can come out with a good piece of it, okay? A portion of it, okay? And then you start image, portray, selling, what you're wanting to portray to the public, to the guy who's coming into the city to invest in the city. But you do have to show some of the numbers. The rent that IBTS is paying, they're right at $10,000 a month. Just right off the cusp of my head, $1 million investment at $10,000 a month is pretty decent return on investment, you know? But then you start adding some longevities and inflation and rate of return on monies and things of that nature. You can justify $1.5 million, you know? So, I think starting with the money, or at least very much including the money, the cost, what we're spending now, what we're going to spend, and what's our value for the difference. And I think that's where a lot of people are gonna make a decision.
Yeah, everybody understands differently, and some people are right brain, some are left brain, and some people are gonna get out the calculator, and that's gonna make the point, and other people are gonna be, imagine walking through, you know, the
That-
green space and having
When I-
Wi-Fi,
When
yeah, and
when I hear
they're
people
gonna-
talking about green space, I wanna ask them, when's the last time you went to Breck Park?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is a business. This is where we're not cooking hot dogs on the back porch here. It's a business that
But
we're gonna have our
that's
count.
my point.
I don't
Some
see
people are
anybody
gonna visualize
at Kristen
that
Wood,
way.
I don't see anybody sniffing the flowers before the council meeting, you know? Let's
Yeah.
just build what we need to get the business done. And if they want green space, go to Breck Park, you know? That's what we already pay that money.
Can we get a poster child for the left brain?
Yeah, I'm a
Maybe we
business.
get Rohit to donate a couple of acres right in front of Breck Park.
There you
and
go.
then they go to-
There you go, there you go.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Josh?
I'd just like to give my feedback, because I've been involved for the last, since 2015, I think we were hired. The sentiment initially was, I think I had 14 public meetings that we were involved in. And the sentiment was there to build this building, and it wasn't until maybe a year and a half ago where the tide turned. I think it was after the flood where the tide turned. So I think, just as kind of Switzerland here, the third-party innocent bystander, just kind of soul searching and seeing and getting that input again and redirecting that input, I think is gonna be very helpful
Oh,
moving forward.
absolutely,
So, but I think the flood is what flipped the switch for the city center plan. For all, in everybody's brain, everybody had that certain thing going until the flood happened. And I think that's what was the trigger, in my mind, just looking at it from an outsider.
Everything became drainage,
Right.
you know?
So.
That's one of the main reasons why doing this project, we have to go with bonding it in order to keep the money for drainage. We get both of them. No way would I ever agree to go and build this and use city cash to do it.
Right, right.
Strictly have to bond it out.
I see.
No matter what it
Information
is.
the public needs to know.
No matter
We do.
what size or where it is.
How we're gonna do it.
Needs to be
Or
bonded.
what are our choices if we do this? Because I can tell you, I've heard a couple of things here of like, people were bitter at the election, showed that. Well, you can look at that a couple of different ways. One, they might not have been bitter about the size of the facility, but how it was done. It could have been just
Right.
how it was done. They may be willing to come in here and say, looking at the numbers, we really need all three of these done. We need the yard, we need all of this, but it might have to be paid out 3 different ways over so many years. I mean, it's a lot more complicated, and we don't really know why the public voted like they did. We know they were mad about something. Were they mad how it was presented to them, how big it was? What is the thing? And that's what we're gonna be getting back when we talk to them, is what is it you want? Or how can we help get Central, and I love the thought of, this is our city. We have to protect this city and work it the best way we know how to work it. And we need your input to tell us how to do that. And we need your efforts to tell us how to do that. And put it back on them. But it's important to get that information from them, terribly important, because I do think most of the voting was because of the way it was done. They weren't involved, and so they got involved when it came to vote. I can get involved now. Yeah, they didn't ask me before, I can sure vote now. So,
Those people I talked with, the main concern was the $5 billion, period.
it was.
Oh, yeah. That was the whole cog in the wheel.
Well, it was the
Well,
concept that it was either city hall or drainage,
And
and that
part
was
of-
put out there by a lot of the candidates.
Yeah.
Drainage first, drainage first. Well,
They
drainage
did.
is an ongoing thing forever and ever, amen. They have to be concurrent.
Right.
If we're ever gonna have city hall.
And part of that, the $5 million cost goes back to what you said too, is how well they were informed about the $5 million.
What are you getting for $5 million?
Right, yeah.
What are you
Yeah.
getting for $5 million? And how's it gonna be paid for, and what's the cost savings and, or additional cost per month to the city or year to the city? It's a left brain or whatever you were saying, it's a balance
Yeah.
sheet to me.
No, I do that
It's
too.
a
I mean,
balance
that's
sheet
how
to
you,
me,
most,
you know.
and
What's the
most
numbers?
problems are solved with a calculator.
Wait, that's
You know.
right, that's right.
I have a lot of the spreadsheets, like, we do development work, so I have spreadsheets on kind of cost of return on investment and different things that
Right, I think
ran
that's
on this. So
important.
I have a lot of that information on the last one that
Excellent.
we can kind of regurgitate and show where we were. These were these numbers, and
Right.
if it doesn't work, then what is the answer? You know? But whatever information that I mean, I have everything over the last 3 years or however long it's been, but anything that y'all need from me, just ask.
Okay.
Okay, my question comes now, what type of event do you tie these meetings around that could possibly bring people out except the council meeting? Anything
but
else?
Children.
Well, we had, for the LDRC, we had town hall meetings and they were very well attended, remember? We had one during the day and one at night, one during the day for those who don't drive after dark, and one on a school day, and then one in the evening for those who, couldn't make it during work hours.
When was that,
And-
what was that for?
Louisiana Development Ready Communities
Okay.
Program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were very well attended, and people really bought into, this really put a lot of wind in the sails of getting to City Hall. If you recall, that was already begun, but with the foundation and everything, but we want this, and this is how we envision our city, and we're participating in building a city. And really, it was really a cool thing. It was a really cool thing to go to.
And we don't need to limit it to physically having to show up at a meeting. There needs to be a website where they can put their information or their input from the website.
We
If I
utilized
work
that
at
too,
nights,
we
yeah.
did. People
So-
are nicer face to face than they
Mm.
are online,
Mm.
really.
Yeah.
There's no, but we do need to include
We do need
that
to
option.
include
Yeah.
some sort of input outside of physical meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always difficult. We do a lot of church work, so we do a lot of community outreach type projects. So we do have the noon meetings, we have the weekend meetings, we have the night meetings to try to get everybody's input. And it's usually, it's like a charrette, so everybody's kind of sketching their ideas, bringing their notebook or Pinterest account of what pretty pictures they like to see. And it really creates an opportunity for buy-in for public, that they're actually showing something. It's rare that any government institution does that and goes through that process, but I think it would be interesting to see how that would play into this, because I think it's something that, especially with all the negativity towards the City Hall project in general, I think it would go a long way to kind of rebuild that community tie.
And that's my whole point on this is, I know we're under a timetable, because I don't wanna lose this money, like, we don't have a year, to sit here and do all this. But at the same time, exactly what you're saying, you have to get the public to buy into this.
We do.
Okay, and I think, like I said, I just think that's important. And again, it shows the whole point of, well, when are we having these meetings? Well, we have to time around a council meeting, or when Kristen Wood's available or something. And that's what we're trying to sell people is, we need our own council chambers, where if I wanna have a meeting next Wednesday night, I've got a room to have it in, I'll have to go find a place, so it all kinda goes around full circle. But, I think again, this first meeting, I don't wanna overwhelm people with information. I just wanna get the point out there that, hey, we're starting over again. And we want some initial input that give us a little feedback. I don't care if it's 5 people that show up or 50 people that show up, okay? You all know we expect 50 people to show up and you get 5, okay? And then the rest of them wanna go gripe and complain about it. Well, you were given the opportunity, but at least get a starting point for us to base our next meeting on. We have to have a starting point somewhere.
You're saying the charrettes is the best way to go?
If you wanna create community input.
Well, that's what we did with the master plan,
Right,
and we
and
had good.
that's something that
and
we've seen a
I
real
kinda
positive.
agree with that,
It takes time.
Yeah, it
It's gonna take
takes
a lot of
time.
time and effort, but I think as far as where you are right now, there's such negativity associated with City Hall in general.
Right.
To kind of piece things back together, I think having that face-to-face and not being on the internet or anywhere else, face-to-face is the way we understand what people truly want. And if we can have that dialogue, I think that's where you begin to build that bridge back to start with the City Hall, then the city services building, and then be able to introduce all those pieces. And then you can find out what they really want. If they want all the city services in one building, or if they want them separate, we can kind of determine some of that.
And then it's our job is to educate them a little
That's
bit
right.
as to what
That's
they
right.
need.
It's all part of, so we're educating during these charrettes.
Right.
We're showing what the potentials are. We're showing the numbers. We're
Why,
showing-
what's the need,
That's right.
things of that nature.
Right. So I think it's gonna develop a lot of community building during those charrettes, and that's something to think about. But
No, I agree.
It does take time, and time is of the essence for this year.
Sure.
To be able to capitalize on that.
Right.
And if you could drum up, hey, we're gonna have to do these charrettes and be positive, we just have to try to get the word out as soon as possible when we wanna do that.
Josh, you and David have both mentioned time is of the essence, not losing funding, et cetera. Is there some thought that we're going to progress to some sort of a decision that captures funding before June 30th?
I just don't know.
Just curious. I mean, that's the next jumping off point for funding. And again, I think we need to answer the question of the $200 and something thousand we haven't submitted to the state. Are they currently willing to reimburse us out of the $400 that we have committed? Is that, have we just not asked for the money? Because I've seen the bills payable to Hot Power. We funded it. We did it. Is that not reimbursable?
I'll find out.
I'm gonna tell you, this is that right brain again. If I'm gonna lose funding on June 30th, and I got $800,000 sitting out there someplace, I'm gonna buy me a piece of property, because you're not gonna build a building before June 30th.
Well, that was.
I'm gonna spend that, I'm gonna invest that money in a piece of property, and then I might say, oh, I changed my mind, I'm going over here and build, and I'm gonna sell that piece of property.
Well, that's.
You follow what I'm?
No,
you
that's
see what
one of
I'm
my
doing?
main
If I need
thoughts
to
is-
spend it, I'm gonna share it, it or lose it, I'm gonna invest it someplace. It might not be exactly where I wanna go, but it's gonna be a potential candidate.
But I'm not sure if they'll fund it until you have an approved project. That's,
No.
I don't know. I don't know the inner workings
I
of
don't
that.
either, but that's.
Yeah.
I think part of the conversation was that it had to be in the process. It was
Okay.
kind of a vague
Okay.
term. It needed to be in the process, whether we were designing it or whether you scratch.
You don't
it.
have to spend it.
I don't think you have to spend it. I think it has to be legitimately in a process.
I'm probably the only one in the room now, but I'm gonna go back to it again. You're talking about time, and again, I don't see why you don't wanna send the RFI out to these people now, so at least you know some of the things that are going on. And there's always can be added to, because you're not gonna make a decision on buying a piece of property. It always allows people the opportunity to add into it what you already have, but at least get this started so you can have some ideas of what do you do
Yeah,
have,
because this is a 90-day process with land.
you know?
Well, if we don't have any stipulations on the size of the parcel, we could put it out there right now. And they'll be coming in, there'll be totally unsuitable things coming in, but if we just checked them right off last time. You know, it was really a no-brainer. But there may be some show up that we never considered.
Yeah, but it doesn't hurt to get these in the pipeline.
Right,
And then add
right.
to the pipeline as they
Yeah.
come.
Well, it gives us more information.
Right.
When
I
we
mean, I
put
think it's-
out an RFI, it goes to our citizens too.
Yeah.
They can see it too. It's not like we're keeping any secrets or doing anything behind anybody's back.
I mean, it could be
right?
published in the paper, here it is.
Well,
and,
that's what has to happen,
you
yeah.
know, Put it out there. I mean, plus
Yeah,
send these out
It don't
now.
hurt to send that out. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason not to, that I can see. You would know best.
I get
You've
the-
dealt
Can
with
you
this
see a
before.
reason not to?
I don't see any reason not to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Can you see a reason not to?
It's just the public sentiment. I mean, that's the political side of it.
And we're
that-
not buying it, we're just gathering information.
You're right.
It's just a.
That's,
We're just gathering
that's,
information.
that's the message that we have to get across. Nobody is building a building now. We're starting the process over. That's the
Yeah, we
information I
started
wanna get out.
today.
You gotta start from scratch somewhere,
Starting over with public input.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, and the only thing I was cautious about that, and I'm fine, if that's the direction we wanna go, but you open up the paper and I say, we're searching for sites for Central City Hall. Well, son of a.
They've already
Son
doing
of
it
a-
again.
They already at it. You know, they're already, I never knew they're getting started again without talking to us. But I mean, I understand.
I think
But you could put
David-
something in the paper and say,
David
look,
needs to-
we're starting this process,
We're
we're
not
gathering
building a
information.
building. You
understand.
have
We're
to
not
have a
building
starting
building.
point. When you go to, when you decide you wanna build yourself a personal house, what's the first thing you do?
Okay.
Well, you ride around different cities, different subdivisions, different towns, and you look. You know, and that's just kinda where we're at now. We're looking at properties. you
Well,
know?
there's a big old disclaimer in the RFI too.
I understand.
Yeah.
This is a fact-finding mission.
But David, in your first letter that you put out, you put in there that you are gonna work on City Hall. You can put out another one, say, we have the process going, and just continue.
State of the city or whatever you
Well, and the
mentioned.
process is gathering information for the public,
Right.
Mhm.
for you. We're doing this
To
to bring it to you,
Right.
to
Yeah.
bring it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what they're gonna ask you. When you had this meeting, why wasn't this one a public meeting? Why wasn't this advertised and people brought in? That'll be one of the first questions out
We
there.
had to have a committee meeting to decide what we wanna talk about.
Right.
You know, what we wanna go to the public and talk about. We gotta have an organizational meeting first, you know? We've got a committee here and we wanna talk about, you know, what do we want to get out there to you? How do we want it done? All right, anything else? Okay, so let's talk about this meeting that we wanna have at the next council meeting. We wanna have that after the council meeting? Immediately following the
Your
council
council
meeting?
meetings aren't that long. I mean, you could do.
Well, you never know, the one last week was supposed to be 30 minutes and it was
Right.
an hour 45. You never know, you know. Usually,
Council meetings start at 6, right?
mhm.
Yeah, 7:30. For sure you're gonna be rolling by 7. You're gonna be out of that one by 7.
Yeah, we have
This meeting we're having here, this isn't gonna be an hour
Yeah.
long meeting. This is a brief, I'd say probably, if you use 30 minutes at most, you know, just to kind of explain to the public, give some input.
Right, then why don't you have it at 5:30?
Because the meeting starts at 6.
Right, well, I mean, that's what we do with our budget.
But this is the problem I noticed though. You can't, because then you have people constantly walking in to the doors, getting settled. And we've had meetings like that right before council meetings, and nobody can hear anything because you have a meeting started and there's 30 people walking the door and everybody's talking and moving around in chairs. And then the council members said, we gotta basically get set up 15 minutes before the meeting, just getting the
Yeah.
council meeting set up. So that doesn't leave us, you know, the time.
And I think it's gonna be more than a 30-minute meeting. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, this was supposed to be an hour.
Yeah.
Who's gonna facilitate?
Yeah.
David, you gonna facilitate?
Well, that's the next question. How do we wanna have this set up?
Or Wayne, one of the two.
You know?
Don't make, whatever he wants me to do, I done told him, it's up to him to tell me what to do.
You know?
Is there a beginning time? Are you gonna put a beginning time or are you gonna?
After the council meeting.
You're gonna.
I can say immediately
promote-
following the council, that way it
Okay.
might encourage people to come to a
Okay.
council meeting.
All right.
you know?
All right.
Is there a reason you can't do this inside of a council meeting?
Well, if it was inside of a council meeting, then it's like part of the council meeting, I guess. I mean, I'd rather it
If
be,
you want to end the council meeting and go into it.
Just asking.
yeah, you're getting into the point more of, if it's a council meeting, then you have to follow council procedures, council rules. It's kind of like, well, the council's running the meeting or the clerk's running the meeting or something. I'd rather it be a separate, you know.
Informal meeting.
Yeah, this is that's exactly the word I'm looking for, an informal.
A
first
charrette,
meeting.
just have a charrette following the council meeting.
That would take a lot longer than 30
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
That's what?
That'd take longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I think you do this,
Midnight oil.
yeah, you do this meeting, then that should lead you into a survey.
Yeah.
That's what
You know,
the whole
that's
point of
what
what
the
we're doing. This
informational
is an
meeting.
introductory meeting.
Right, introductory.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that.
This isn't the
Maybe a
first
short
full-blown, this isn't the first full-blown meeting. This is an introduction to say, hey, here's what we're trying to do.
We're trying to move forward and we
Right.
want you as a part.
Exactly.
I think that information will get you questions, and you could walk away with some information about the process. I think it would be easier to do it in that format. That way we can take whatever input we have and kind of bring it all together in one document and say, these were the yays, these were the nays.
Don't you have a silencer?
That would be good backup. It help for.
Get the message.
That could form
That's
the
right.
direction.
The base.
Yes, yeah, it could. So in our last meeting, we had so many people say they wanna look at this direction, this, or phases, or only this, or whatever. And so therefore, we're coming to you to say, is this what you would like, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how you promote, because we have social media, we have all these things now that are supposed to be communication tools, but sometimes it's lacking. But if we can use those tools to be able to communicate that this is gonna happen in one place, to be able to difficult to keep up with. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing that right now. Just trying to hone in on what the sentiment it actually is. And if it's only based on the public meetings, or is it based on everything else that's going on around? And it's hard for us to really hone all that in and create a building from it. We're gonna need input from a committee, for sure, to be able to take all that input and pare it down into something that's tangible. Because it's really difficult. I know we do different types of churches. The Methodists are probably the most difficult because they do everything democratically. So we go into a church and it's 150 people and everybody has a vote and everybody has a say. And it's very difficult to try to figure out what type of building you build with 150 people. But when we have a dictator priest in the Catholic Church, that he's saying, this is what we're doing, period, I don't care what anybody thinks, it's easier on us, but we also get pushback, from the public. So I think there's a middle ground that we just have to utilize some of that experience, in dealing with the public. And
I know, way back, light years ago, IBTS always wanted to do a website for public input, which was a good idea. They wanted to do it. They would do it at no cost to the city, really, which would be a good thing to do for something like this.
yeah, because it could pool all of the comments for a
Right.
particular issue and be able to maybe pare all that down. Maybe you have the ditch folks and then you have the city hall folks and you can actually itemize those things in the for or
Right.
against and commentary.
Remember when we did our resiliency plan?
Uh-huh.
Nathan and them did like a Facebook page, City of
Yeah.
Central Resiliency Plan. Yeah, they just got kind of everything where you could
Right.
comment on that one.
People just wanna be heard and acknowledged.
Right.
And I promise you, the amphitheater lady, she's gonna still take ownership of the city center.
Yeah.
She's still gonna feel like it's hers, even though she's just not gonna get that or the drive-in theater or all the other things that were thrown out there.
I mean, don't build a city hall, build you an emergency management control center.
Yeah.
Yeah, emergency management controls.
Over again, we are actively doing something.
And how are we gonna collect this information if Wayne's gonna lead this after the board meeting on the 26th?
are we gonna collect it on paper? Are we gonna collect it as letting the people stand up and talk about it, you know, and hope it's 3 minutes or less? Or, I mean, how are we gonna collect information from this group of people that's coming?
Take notes.
Yeah, I think that the initial meeting will be conversational,
Okay,
and then I think the next meeting, you say, hey, bring your ideas with you, and then it'll be more of an informal sketch down your ideas, bring your ideas, what do you want size-wise? Maybe give questions to the public to bring their answers back to us
right.
for the charrette, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. That will help. That would
So
that would
pose
firm up.
questions.
That would quicken the process.
Right, pose the
Mhm.
questions that you would like to see answered from the public, and be able to bring that into the charrette.
Yes.
We'll have some
Yeah.
forms printed up, you know, where
Okay.
people can write their comments down.
We
on.
decide to send the
I
NRFIs
think
or
that would
not?
help, 'cause
Sorry?
when I
We're
go
sending
to a
the
lot of meetings,
NRFIs or
sometimes
not?
I
Yeah,
don't
it's
talk,
kinda
I
like
sit in the
that.
back and just
Right.
listen,
Yeah.
but I always leave something. And I was a green space person. But I always left my opinion.
Yeah.
I never spoke, I always sat in back, but I always left my opinion.
Yeah, no,
So
we'll
I
have,
wanna
we'll
make
have some
sure that we
forms.
have that for these people.
We'll set up, you know, we can even have, you know, we'll have the email or whatever, that you can email your comments.
Mhm.
Fill out
Yes.
forms, write it, send it to
Yeah.
this address or
Absolutely.
whatever, you know, we'll
Okay.
let people have.
So they're gonna get a piece of paper from us and that they can put some ideas on, and it'll also have information that they can take, maybe another piece of paper they take home with them with the email address on it, or they can mail it to the city hall or whatever. But they need to be able to take that home with them, and they
Yeah.
have to be able to leave something behind for us.
Or both, they'll have that meeting the other night, if they wanna write something on it that night, turn in, or they
Yes.
can take it home with them, you
Okay.
know?
Sounds good.
Take a day or two, attach 3 other pages if you want,
Right.
whatever they want, you know?
I think they also should have the opportunity to just speak then and ask questions then, because sometimes I'll think, oh, that was a great question, I wish I'd thought to ask that. That changes the way I'm looking at this, so it's kind of, you'll learn from each other, just the questions and to know what direction to go in and what's your question after that one, and I think that people see things differently and you can learn a lot or get a better view of what's going on by looking at what other people have to say.
Well, it's just what Josh says, and I agree 100%, it's that face-to-face conversation, you know, that you have to have with people,
Yeah.
you know? Okay. All right, anything else? I'll thank y'all for coming. See y'all can make it if the council